Right folks, welcome back. I hope you are all relieved. You have got your wee breath of fresh air for those who required it. I know I certainly did. I touched on this at the beginning, and really it was kind of going to be my first question just to kick this off. Touched on it, but I was really intrigued by the answer that I got, so I think I might just ask the same question again because I think it's important. So, junkie is a dead provocative term. Even when we were promoting the night's viewing, screening for example, a couple of local people were commenting, oh, what are you doing, you're using that word, and what's that about? And you could see folks were really antagonised by it. So I suppose again, just to ask the question again, I know we've spoken about this already, can you explain to folks your kind of reasoning behind that and what you were hoping to achieve, I suppose, by that?
Aye, so basically, the idea of the title behind the film, it was totally intentional. And even when I had the idea of the title before I even had an idea of the format of how the thing would actually look. And the reason being, obviously, it covers like the drug death statistics, quote unquote, in Scotland, and also Scotland's drug problem. But if we'd have called it that, people would have lost it, because we're that used to seeing these titles in like the media as such, on your mainstream broadcasters. We wanted to use a title that it would get people's attention. I'm sure everybody in this room has used that word in some context in their life. They've heard it, they've probably had direct or indirect experience. They might have family members that's been labelled it, maybe walk past people in the street. Some people might have used it. I've used it negatively. I don't think there's really a positive way you can use it. I've used it in the past when I was kind of uneducated to the meaning behind the word, and of course that's why for the offset we put up the definition of the word, and the idea is to kind of set that kind of tone, set that bar. This is what it means, and then you kind of discover throughout the film what it feels like, and then we bring you back to that at the end of the film. For people, no matter what your kind of perspective on it, some people, their perspective is reinforced, other people probably question their own perspective on it, and that was the kind of goal, to make people, or give people the arena to think, right, wait a minute, this is what I'm calling these people, so I better get an understanding of what has led them into this way of life. So the idea was to kind of educate people, and we hope we've managed to achieve that tonight.
Anybody else got any questions you want to ask?
When it came up about ACEs, have either of you ever done an ACEs questionnaire?
I have done an ACEs questionnaire, so I probably had quite a good childhood, probably just the same as everybody else. I came from a kind of Catholic background, and it was like a lot of obviously communions and all the kind of this stuff. So it was all based around alcohol, and it was very normalised in my family. Still is. Do you know what I mean? Like I still go to these christenings and all that, and it's still prevalent. And I think there is a lot of people, I've certainly got a lot of cousins and stuff like that I know who came to the Cumbernauld stuff and probably questioned, what's it called? I probably questioned their own use, do you know what I mean, and their own alcohol use. But when I went into prison, I was 19, so I kind of missed, but if I hit the ACEs stuff, throughout my prison, it was like you're probably ticking every boat. So when I go to Castle Huntly, they made me go in and do the kind of, it's called, it's basically you kind of need to train yourself up to live outside the shopping and all that, because I never knew any of that stuff. I stayed with my ma, do you know what I mean? So it was like one of the ones where you're kind of learning how to live. And to be honest, if I never had the partner that I had, I probably, in the support network, I probably wouldn't be here. So they still probably look after me a lot, to be honest. And that's 5 years on, and I'm so lucky to have that support network, but a lot of people don't. So the adverse childhood experience thing, I think, is a huge movement, and I don't think we've tackled it properly in the way that I work in drug services. And as I say, if somebody comes in with these kind of ACEs, and some are, as you can imagine, like horrific, there isn't anywhere to send people with trauma, do you know what I mean? You're asking somebody maybe that's 3-4 days after crack cocaine to come to a group. Is that good enough? Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I don't think so, but that's the budget you're given, and that's all you can kind of work with. So it's a good question, it's a very good question. And I think a lot of people, if you've done an ACEs kind of thing, would probably score quite higher than you think anyway.
But I think it would give you a much better understanding of things, triggers, traumas, to support them better. I feel ACEs questionnaires would be quite beneficial if it was something that was rolled out all across.
Definitely, because you don't need to be an addict, or you don't even need to have took drugs or drink to score high on an ACE system. Like, obviously I spoke to yourself a wee bit down there, and I can imagine you would score really high on an ACE chat. A lot is, as Dr. Sarah Armstrong kind of pointed out, there's probably you'd be lucky to find a family that isn't touched by addiction in Scotland these days, or knows somebody who's hanging. So it's a very good question, and something that the government, I don't think, have tackled very well, even though the studies and the people that we've got in Scotland, like James Docherty, like Sarah Armstrong, and people that are really massive advocates here, I don't think they're utilising it.
Yeah, definitely.
Obviously, like, there's not trauma informed, there's not enough, like, services, there's not one to give you that network, because these networks are, like, as I get kicked out of prison and stuff like that, there's no social networks to be like, right, okay, there's a stabilised situation, I can go to my mum and be like, I'm having a bad day, who do you have? You have nobody.
Yeah.
Because there's no one trauma informed. Sorry, I'm angry.
No, I think, and I think...
Be angry. That's the place to be angry.
I think what Terry was talking about earlier, I had Dan McGarvey on my podcast just before he kind of released his book, and we spoke about trauma, and I think it's became a buzzword. I think it's a buzzword that people don't really genuinely know what trauma is. Do you know what I mean? You get somebody that misses a bus and goes, oh, I was absolutely traumatised at that, you know, and that's no trauma. Do you know what I mean? You're stressed. There's a difference. Trauma, the thing is with trauma is you can build, so you get layers, so you get the root trauma problem, but on top of that, most people will end up in a life of addiction, crime, whatever, which then builds trauma upon trauma upon trauma. And as Dan McGarvey probably pointed out, it's a big business now, do you know what I mean? And people are benefiting off it, do you know what I mean? And I don't think that these places, how can a prison be trauma informed when it's causing trauma? Do you know what I mean? Like,
Is it the networks and stuff like that, they should understand and give you time, like one-on-one and stuff like that. That's what when you feel that you're let down, like and stuff like that.
System.
Yeah.
Feel just so you can go into the
And
prison
obviously
system.
more support and stuff like that.
Way support and mental
Because
health
it's bad for
regardless
it's
of
bad
the
for
end it does.
Yes, it's bad for
I think these are both right. I think once you go in, I think these are both right. I think there's once you go into prison, there's like I done 15 years and I can't remember somebody coming up and saying, "Are you all right, Sean? Are you all right?" Or aye, there was, and as you rightly say, is like the way that you'll get through. If you go to Castle Craig, you'll get one-to-one support every single day with experts who know what they're talking about, who are really trauma-informed people. Dana, 6 weeks, even some trauma courses are 3 days, do you know what I mean? You can't fit that into 3 days and imagine people to remember.
Even a trusted person, like Jacqueline, that you could trust somebody, that you have a good like network, that relationship that you can go to, and
Totally.
like that's what I feel like that support should be, if that makes sense. So.
No, you make perfect sense, and the both of you make perfect sense.
Can I just add on to that?
Aye.
Yankee in a prison system, right? If anybody's ever been in prison in here, or if had experienced a loved one's been in prison, or just imagine any like film or show or TV. Obviously, it's very, very exaggerated and dramatised, but think it, right? If you see like, a fellow prisoner, if you're in the exercise yard and you see them going into a room with a prison officer for an hour a week, and you go up to them and say, "What are you doing? What are you speaking about?" They're not going to say, "I'm telling them about my trauma." They're not going to, they're going to shut up, and then they're going to be like, "Wait a minute, people are watching me, I'm going to look like a grass." I remember being in the jail and see if I was talking to, I'll use the term screw, right? I was talking to one of the screws for too long, out of earshot of other prisoners. I would make a point of cutting the conversation like quite quickly, or I would make sure it was in earshot of other people, because I would worry, are they thinking I'm a grass here? And that's the kind of thing, it's hard to build a relationship because it's us v them. You know what I mean? And that can start in the schemes, it can start in schools, whatever, because it's that kind of distrust of authority. But plus as well, you go like, right, I'm worried I'm going to take drugs in here, or I'm suffering with poor mental health, as I spoke about in that documentary. You say the wrong thing to the wrong person, you'll end up putting suicide watch, you'll be locked up, and you'll be in a worse situation than you already are. So somebody was asking me, just during the break here, what do you think really needs to be done? And Sean says it very well. You kind of need to strip it and rebuild it, and that costs a lot of money. And the thing is, Anne-Marie spoke about addicts as such, and especially prisoners. The general public, how hard is it to get sympathy for somebody that's in prison for the general public? So even you go and you see, and obviously it's sensitive for some people who may have experienced it, Glasgow Live, Daily Records, prisoner dies in Ballina of drug death or suicide. How much sympathy do you see in that comment section? The general public are largely unsympathetic because they've got no connection to that, they've got no experience it, but when it's your loved ones, your friends, your brothers, your dads, whatever, that's when you experience it, and that's when you're like, wow man, these are just people. You know what I mean? So I think... Exactly, and the thing is as well, Eddie says it in there, it's like, if you're looking at a prison system that's largely benefiting from a medicated prison population, then what incentive have they got to steer people away from that? You see, hear people on methadone for 30 years, how is that meant to be? That's substance, what do they call it, replacement. There's no design to wean anybody off it. From what I hear from people, I never take methadone myself, but a lot of people that are prescribed it, as Francis said, it was like getting into a jail that he couldn't get out of because he couldn't get off it. He was getting in and they weren't encouraging him to come off it. I'm in recovery myself, and the same stories echoed through so many people. I've never heard of a person that went on methadone and they were given a clear structured plan on how to wean themselves off it. They were just parked on it. And if they try to come off it, it get put up. If anybody can tell me otherwise, I'd be really enthusiastic to hear that.
And I think the best way to look at it in the new is so I work in the services, and we get told, like, I don't know, they maybe come in 6 months ago or something, the police come in and said, listen, the Taliban have shut the 2 main routes with the opium trade, so we believe within 3 months the heroin that's in the streets will kind of dry up, and then within 6 months we're looking at fully synthetic opioids. Now, Scotland is not ready for what's coming. See, these nitazines and the fentanyl stuff, they're not ready for it. Now, services can see with crack cocaine's a big thing now, it's changing, so there's less heroin on the street. The drug of choice has changed to crack cocaine, and the services don't know how to deal with it. There's no replacement drug for crack cocaine, do you know what I mean? And I know they're trying dexamphetamine and they're trying all these different things, but they genuinely don't know what to do with it. So you go to your statutory service and you say, listen, I've been on crack cocaine for 9 years. And then they say, but I've been off it for 3 days. Right, okay, you go to that service. They're not actually willing to put any kind of work in. And this is where the gap is. The gap's huge. Do you know what I mean? And you can see that with crack cocaine. Hang on, this is back.
I suppose it's not but when you were saying there about crack cocaine and like strip things all of you back, I think it really is about a societal change.
Yeah.
Like I work with young people, and I've worked since 2014 and since the addiction, and young people, I would say, maybe I was very naive when I was young, but what it experience recreationally, as it is now, young people, it's just exploded, I think, for young people, and what they're not understanding is when they think of junkies, they think of people that use heroin without actually realising that not as many people do use heroin anymore. It is cocaine, it's the same drug that they're using, it's just they're using it in a more fashionable way that makes it look more attractive. And I think in terms of like, obviously the issues like Country Street and the drug treatment service and stuff like that, I can understand that more money needs to be spent on rehab. But if you put somebody into a rehab and you don't have a full systems approach, if you put them into rehab and they come out and they'll present this homeless to their local council, what else are they going to do? They're going to relapse. How would you relapse? Because you put me back out on the street, I'm in the exact same situation with a clearer mind, but still fucked.
No, yeah, I think you're right. I mean, if you look at the results, like Castle Craig, or if you look at the results of the Priory and stuff like that, where the wealthy go, you'll kind of see the difference in relapses. But I would like, I know plenty of people who have went to rehab and go clean, do you know what I mean? So I think there is a push to listen. There is services trying, and there is people trying. Do you know what I mean? The government, for whatever reason, are blocking a lot of it. Do you know what I mean?
And it's the same with prisons. I think, like, I watched your podcast with Normalization.
Yeah.
There's fantastic people in prisons. Prisons
Yeah.
are a horrible place. It's a traumatic place to talk about. There are people trying to do good within that
Yeah,
prison
definitely.
environment, but I do think it comes down to the general public needs to change their opinion and needs to be more empathetic and compassionate to these people before any of these services, because you can't blame one service because they're all failing, and then it all comes down to how we feel and how we treat these individuals to make housing better, to make the prison services do better, to make health do better, to treat it as it is a health condition. And it's not going to change unless we do things like this. So
I think like if you, obviously you guys are fair Ferguson part, so you are more than you know crime. Do you know what I mean? You know what crime is, and you know organised crime. You know the different levels of it. Do you know what I mean? Like and it's everywhere now. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not just the kind of schemes that you used to hear, like Postal, Springburn, and all these different. It's everywhere now. Do you know what I mean? And as it says, cocaine is completely normalised. And if anybody wants to say it's no, I will challenge anybody to go to any local pub on a Saturday during the day. It's harder to get into the toilet. You can't get in. Do you know what I mean? Everybody's doing lines. You can't get into the toilet. So that's a lie that people are trying to say when you're at government level saying, "Oh, this isn't a problem," and this it's a lie. You could go into any pub in Scotland, choose anyone, and you will see the same thing. But I'll let Jordan kind of talk.
Just to kind of riff off what Sean was saying, it's like you go into a pub, you get offered a line before you get offered a pint. I'm sure you can all relate to that. And it's well, there's a denial, there's a massive kind of denial, and Anne-Marie Ward, she says, there's an institutional memory loss. There's no denials in these rooms because we've all lived it, but we're no in these, no offence to Ferguson Park, I don't know what it's like round about here, but if we're looking at people that stay in these plush, more affluent areas where people are 18 times less likely to die for a drug death, then I'd say they've probably got maybe more of a sheltered view. But of course, if you go into like these kind of more affluent areas, and if you go to like a house party or the local pub, people will probably be taking lines of cocaine because it's more socially acceptable. It's the rich person's drug. But if you go into like the housing scheme and you go into the house where they're all smoking crack, you know what I mean? That's a lot more common these days, because what I've realised is, well, I was a cocaine addict for a number of years. I've not touched anything for the past 3 years, and what I've witnessed is crack cocaine has become a lot more normalised, whereas that was put in the same bracket as heroin back when I was younger. It was right, you can do this drug, this drug, this drug, but stay away from the drugs. And there was a separation that was put in place, and now it just seems like the drugs, the harshest of drugs are the most acceptable. But then when you look at what we've tried to do in this film here, it's not the substance that's a problem. Change the substance, and you still get the same behaviours and the same root problems that they lead to addiction, essentially. Somebody had their hand up over there. Yeah, can you take the mic?
Can I go now?
Oh, you've got the mic, man. The mic.
I've not really rehearsed this until I seen the movie. So it was the redhead lass saying about the Scottish government not funding it, or they did fund it, and then they found out they didn't have a plan. Like, what are they basing it on? And I think that obviously prevents the government giving you more money, because you think like an addict, until they kind of want help, then you're not really like, you can give them all the help in the world, but as soon as they tell you want to hear, they're going to go and score again, aren't they? Mm-hmm. So recently, my brother been he'd been accepted into Jericho House, so he's been in there now for a number of weeks, and I was quite surprised because see when they were in there, there's 18 beds in that house, and there was only 7-8 people in it. So how do you, like, you don't want 18 people, because then that means you get 18 recovering addicts, you want no addicts kind of thing, but you do want 18 people in there. How do you get the money to get them into there, like, in your opinion, basically?
Well, so there was a statistic that I'd placed in the documentary, but the version we played was missing this statistic. I think it's £48,000 per year to hold somebody in jail, roughly around about that margin. I think for 6 months in rehab, it's roughly about 24 grand. So it's roughly about the same cost to keep somebody in rehab, but if you're keeping somebody in rehab, it's like 3 to 6 months, maybe a year in some cases. If you look at Berlin, if anybody's been in Berlin, I'll give you some insight. 90% of people in there are repeat offenders, and they're in for drug-related crimes, whether that's shoplifting, whatever, housebreaking stuff to feed a habit. People, well, as you've seen, Berlin is one of the largest suppliers of methadone in Europe. Andy's been in Berlin, will see that when you see the methadone queue. They call it the Green Mile in there, that's the nickname they give it. It's probably the most busiest part of the prison. They've actually got their own section for it. So you think of all these people say, and of course people need to want it. It's one thing we can say, right, this is a solution, but people need to take it, right? If you were to steer a lot of these people in, and I'm not saying everybody that goes into rehab is going to come out and lead a productive life free from substances, they should, but it takes a lot of work, and you need to want it, as you say, but think of that money you would save in the prison by sending these people to rehab, because the cost is pretty much the same, so they can't say the money's no there, and they are kind of offering as such these days, like, you do prison to rehab type things, but if what I hear, like, I've no direct experience, I've been in rehab myself, I've been in recovery, I've had a couple of conversations about, right, what's the kind of the protocol, how do you steer somebody into rehab, and it was for one person in particular I was asking, and the guy was like everyday drug user, he couldn't get after drugs, he owed thousands of pounds out, he'd been put out into the hostel with his mum and dad, brought back in, it was carnage, and I says to a good friend of mine, it's really involved in that world, and he says, I'll be honest with you, he's no bad enough. And that's not his words, he's like, the way they say it, he's no bad enough for them to warrant funding. So it's a really rocky road to even get funding just to get in the place. But as you say, they've 18 beds, is it? It's not a lot, but...
No, but I mean, like, that's like the west side of Scotland. It's not, like they say, it's not a priory, it's not a very well, like, rich people's kind of priory. It is for people in this, our area, Greenock area. But having like 7 people in there, that's the men's side of it. The females is in Govan, I think it is. Right. And I don't know what their situation is, but you would want them filled for the good reasons. But as they say, like they need to want it, and it's the funded side of it. Because it took, like from my brother's side of it, 18 months he tried to do it, and then instead of like getting fobbed off, and he'd party playing it as well, he would go and score again. After no help me, I'm just away to another hit. And it's kind of like a fed up side of it. So, but then they do need to want it. And how bad do you get? Because he was told you've got to actually, you can't go in there, it's abstinence, you don't take anything. But then drug addicts always want to score. So it's no matter, like, I'll go into rehab, but as soon as I get a chance, and it is a Jericho House rules is as soon as you're out. So it's kind of hard.
Definitely, it's no easy. I've heard of people scoring outside the rehab, you know what I mean? Because it's like, it's nobody's saying it's easy by any stretch of the imagination, but the thing is as well, if you're seeing that kind of road laid out in front of you, and for me, I would love to say the first time I wanted to get clean, I done it. I never, it took multiple times, and a lot of denial on my part, because I was like, right, I can't be a drug addict because I only go out for 3 days of the week. I'm sober for 4, but I'm lying. Every day I'm thinking about drugs, you know what I mean? Because I didn't realise it was the mind, I thought it was the actions and behaviours. So this is what we kind of want to show to the general public with this type of film, because it's one thing getting into recovery, obviously you've got a close family member that's in addiction, you can see it firsthand. A lot of people don't have that, so it's hard for them to understand. And me, I class myself as an addict. It took a long time for me to wrap my head around it, and still that's a process in itself. But how many rehab beds are there in Glasgow?
So
There's not many.
I work out the North Lanarkshire kind of thing, and we don't, like, so third sector charities and stuff don't have the power to put people into. So as I say, it's like the statutory services won't deal with the cocaine problem, but they'll send them to the third sector. We don't have any power to send anybody to rehab. It's only the statutory services. Now what they want you to do is they want you to have like maybe a 3 to 6 month clean period before they'll even consider you for rehab, right? Which is mental to me, right? Because you would think that the people that you would want to put in is the most chaotic. So it doesn't make sense to me, right? So you bang your head off the wall all the time, do you know what I mean? And you go back and forth. And listen, the people in the statutory services don't agree with either, but that is the rules, do you know what I mean? So see when you're coming in and somebody's saying to me, like, I lost a good pal, right? I lost one of my best pals at Christmas, right? Through addiction, right? He overdosed, and he'd asked me, Sean, go on to try and get me into rehab. And it was like, I don't know why you're trying to be truthful with me. Go, mate, you're so far away from being in rehab, like, you need to go to services and that. And some people are just like, I don't want to go to a service, I don't want to go to groups, I want one-on-one help, do you know what I mean? And the money's just not there, man. The money is just not there. And if you speak to like any drug minister or any of these politicians, they'll lie to you, barefaced lie to you, and tell you whatever you want to hear, do you know what I mean? But the truth of the matter is, it's the hurdles that you need to jump there. It doesn't matter how traumatic your background, how bad things are in your life, people will turn you away for rehab, do you know what I mean? Aye.
You're saying it's for the organised to keep somebody in prison,
More than that for some prisoners.
but it's cheaper to put somebody in
Yep.
rehab. So do you think it's a government problem? Do they want people to be like this? 'Cause that's what it seems like.
I'm probably the wrong person to ask that, right? Because I'm very conspiratorial, right? So I'll let Jordan answer that, right?
Aye. I'm a bit less conspiratorial, but still a wee bit conspiratorial. I think, well, as Ash Regan says, the government are trying to solve a problem that they don't understand. And is that sheer ignorance, or is it a refusal to understand? And it goes back to that sympathy thing. It's like if you look at people in addiction and people in prison, with the general public, they've not got the best reputation, right? And that's not a reflection on the people, because when we see it in the papers, because people go to jail, some people do deserve to go to jail. So immediately, when you look in the papers, it talks about, it'll pick the worst of prisoners. Like, we know the type they're talking about. They're getting PlayStation 4s and all that stuff, and they'll drum it up, and it stokes the flames for the general public to get angry. End of the day, see, for politicians, they're only caring about getting their votes, in my opinion, right? To say, right, we're going to focus on, like, trauma-informed therapy for prisoners because we want to kind of understand what led them into this life of crime, led them into addiction as such, that's not a vote winner. And see, if one day it was to be a vote winner, you would hear a lot of them fighting over who's got the best policy. So I think for it to get to that point, it has to be the general public, because they are essentially the policy pushers. You know what I mean? It's like people like yourselves, the general public, you need to be crying out for change before they actually stand up and listen. And that'll start off at local council level, and then it'll move itself up through the government system. But as I say, I was speaking to somebody earlier on, and it's like, change can be done. Will it be done in our lifetime? I don't know, but we could definitely get the momentum going. And I think these days, if you look at like prejudice and discrimination, we're looking at like there's identity politics, you've got the trans debate, you've got a lot of stuff like that. People are starting to become more inclusive than they were 20, 30, 40 years ago. So I'm sure people can come round to this way of thinking, going like that, right, wait a minute, let's not ostracise these people, because once we understand their stories, their histories, their backgrounds, I think a lot of people watch this tonight, and correct me if I'm wrong, they've probably seen maybe something, a bit of themselves in this, because you can relate to some of these people, their stories, because we're not looking at this person that's taken this drug, we're looking at, wait a minute, this person was in care, or they were battered by their parents as they were young. I'm sure some of the older generation can identify with that, because it was a very common practice back in the day. So it's the idea, it's understanding people's stories and humanising addiction. That was a goal. If people go, what was the purpose of this documentary? It was to humanise addiction, because up until now, it's largely been dehumanised. And a lot of these people have been dehumanised throughout history, so that is the goal. And if we can start to get more conversations like that, then I would pray that we can start to make progress in the right direction with the government.
I'll add one wee conspiratorial thing, right? If anybody's have ever seen I don't know if it was Netflix, but it's a documentary, no, it's a box set called Dope Sick. And essentially it was the opioid crisis in America and what caused it, and it was a drug called Oxycontin. And you have to see this to believe it. Now the profits that they made, I think, were like maybe near 3 billion or something. They got fined 580 million and asked to shut their kind of company down. Now Oxycontin's over here now. It's run, I don't know who runs it now, but it's Pfizer are a huge part. So Big Pharma is a huge part, and I'm not going to go too deep into it because I do go very deep into these things. But I think there's a lot of jobs created around poverty and drugs and trauma. There's a lot of jobs created around crime and stuff like that. So if I click my fingers and I get rid of crime and drug addiction tonight, a lot of powerful people are going to lose their jobs. So do they want to I don't know. It's a good question. It's a very good question. I would lean towards maybe looking at some other things, but that's going down another road. Do you know what I mean? But no, it's a good question. Thank you.
Well, I left for 5 years, right, before they took the Edinburgh High Court to miscarriage of justice. We're sorry. Out the day. During that time, was my father, I was right there. Relationship broke up, lost my heart, problems, Jesus. How can you buy that back?
I don't know, mate. It's obviously like I'm a full believer in miscarriage of justice and stuff, mate. I'd need to know, it's one of the ones you need to know the story. Do you know what I mean? And it's no real. It's probably no the same as like an addiction question, if you know what I mean. But I know it's terrible. Terrible. These things happen. Terrible.
For me, the biggest injustice is somebody lying in the street and dying and I was walking by them. So I'm getting the government on that because if we put the same focus into helping these people, I'm in a position to help them with Street Connect. When I did a Rehabilitation Challenge programme, I was there a year and a half. I'm now 2 years clean and there's rehabs that are free. And they don't have to cost money. But we have to take responsibility as for a rain addiction as well.
Definitely.
In that same effort.
Definitely, mate. A million %. And I think responsibility and seeing yourself in that toxic relationship with that drug that you're taking, you really need to see that, do you know what I mean? And you need to identify that. You need to work through your own traumas. You need to sit in some uncomfortable positions and uncomfortable places. It's no easy. It's actually really hard. I actually was walking down the night to meet Jordan, and it was outside the count house, and a big guy fell, and obviously I had a protein shaker full of alcohol. And I was wearing this white top, and I was coming here the night, and I was like, oh. And I was waiting for somebody to help him, and nobody moved. Now, it was in the middle of the town, mobbed, absolutely mobbed, and the guy was like kind of screaming, not screaming, but he was shouting help. So I went there and I says, mate, he's coming. I says, he was a big guy, and I was like trying to get him up, and I'm trying to get him up. I says, so I ended up, I got him up in my toot, and then when I done it, a couple of guys came and helped. But the amount of people that walked by that guy, it kind of speaks volumes, do you know what I mean? And there's the people that are walking by are out going to go and get mad with it and probably taking gear and probably taking hanging and looking at him and going, oh, look at him. And just because he's in a worse state, they can be judgmental on that. Yeah. Definitely. I mean, obviously, every community's got their problems, you know, do you know what I mean? And this has been absolutely brilliant. The energy around the room's great. It's been brilliant. You can feel the energy, do you know what I mean? So it's these kind of things that they change and help change people's minds, do you know what I mean?
Right, I'm going to say this. It's right what you're saying and all the rest of it, right? Yeah. I'm nearly 70-year-old. Now, I'm an alcoholic.
Yeah.
I've went through recoveries 3 times. This is the 3rd time.
Yeah.
I've got mental health, I've got psychosis, ADHD.
Yeah.
But today I've not had a drink. This is the first day I've not had one.
Well done.
Right? One day.
Well done. One day more than yesterday.
I did stop for 18 months, then I stopped for 6 months. I always go back to it. Why?
A massive. I mean, I would need to talk to you at length. You know what I mean? But I think obviously lapsing. Listen, I'm not trying to say it's all right to lapse or relapse. Do you know what I mean? But lapsing and relapsing are part of the journey. It's what you take for it, what you learn for it. Every lapse will have a lesson in it. Do you know what I mean? And why did you lapse? And it's trying to recognise that point and that thought, catch that thought where you went, I'm going to take that drink today. It's trying to recognise that so the next time you can kind of catch it before it goes there. Do you know what I mean? And listen, there's so many different reasons, and I just think, well done, man. Like honestly, just keep going, man.
I've got a mental health team to phone me today, but I live in Newcastle now. I've got 2 mental health people, with doctors and all the rest of it. I know at the end of the day it's down to me, but I need that wee bit to hear from you a little bit.
I know.
Definitely. You deserve it, and well in getting your day. You know what I mean? Because it's well in. Yep. No, it's definitely an uphill battle, man, but you've got the first step at the road, so it's just about continuing that momentum. As much as you're saying, like, why do you keep returning to it, or why have you kept returning it in the past? For me, I would just like to share my own experience a wee bit, and you can kind of take for it what you will. So what I realised, right, I thought I had a drug problem for many years, but what I actually had was a me problem. The drugs were just a symptom of it. So whenever I stopped taking drugs, I would achieve like a month without sniffing gear, without drinking, without smoking weed. And I thought, right, I can't be an addict, I'm not using drugs every day. But every day I thought about using drugs. And what I found was, when I wasn't under the influence of a substance, I was suddenly confronted with everything that I was escaping, the shame, the wreckage of the past, the trauma, whatever else it was, and my head was a minefield. And for what I hear, a lot of people that go into recovery and say they'll maybe achieve sobriety, but they won't achieve recovery, that some people become suicidal after a period of time because they're confronted with that and they've no done. And I'm not saying that's the case for you, I'm just for my experience of what I hear. A lot of people don't do the internal work, and for recovery, as much as it's been the answer for me, a lot of people as well, they'll seek outside help alongside recovery. Some people, of course, need medication for like ailments, mental health issues, what have you. So as much as recovery's worked for me, for some people it isn't a one size fits all. It might need to be a couple of things as well, but as Sean says, it's experience, you know what I mean? It's learning, right? Where did I go wrong? And it's kind of going, right, what was happening in the run up to that? Because it's, if like, the internal work isn't done, if that's not been seen, because essentially, like, for me, drugs were just an attempt at a solution. Because for me, I was trying to control something. I feel shite, I want to feel better. I feel good, I want to feel better. You know what I mean? I was always trying to regulate my emotional state. So when I took drugs away, I had a dysregulated emotional state. My head was fucking up my arse. You know what I mean? I was walking about in a building site. I was a scaffolder at the time. I had a really easy job. It was like kind of like a man in attendance. Basically, you're just going about putting the odd pole on, no graft in it. I was stressed at my box. I remember my gaffer saying, he's my pal, he's like, why are you stressed? You're doing no work. I was like, my head's fucking away with it, and I didn't know. That's the thing as well. It's like, I knew there was a problem, but I just didn't know what the root it was. And it wasn't until I went into recovery, and I'd love to say I walked in the doors of recovery and I just got it. I took fucking ages to get it, but I just kept coming back because I tried every other option. I tried changing the substance. I tried what they call doing a geographical, moving away from it. I tried no hanging about with him, no hanging about with him. I'm no drinking that pub. Tried all these, and I tried them more than once. None of it worked. So I was all out of options, and I went, right, people are talking about a 12-step program. They're talking about rooms of recovery. Fuck it, I'll try it. I've got no other option, and they call that rock bottom. Sometimes, depending, it can be the best thing that ever happened to you, depending what direction it sends you in. But that's what happened for me. And listen, man, definitely get a try. If you've been there before, get right back in about it, man. Get yourself a sponsor. That would be my advice to you, man. But keep up the momentum. You're doing well. You're a fucking miracle just being here.
Yeah, anyway, because two failed marriages, you've got kids, grandparents. I want to do it for me.
Mm-hmm.
If
Aye.
I do it for me, I'm a good thing.
It needs to be you. It needs to be.
Okay, so I'm Lindsay, Gordon's daughter. I just want to say how proud I am for you speaking today. I'm a bit emotional, and that's beautiful. And I think that's a part of the collective wounding, is not feeling our emotions and being ashamed of them.
Yeah.
So then we hold back and we don't speak our truths. And then when you hear someone actually dare to speak the truth, you see yourself in that person, and then you remember that we're all connected. The government's not here to help us to thrive, it's to keep us sick. We come from this lower minority which we're aware of, so we're never going to thrive with the governments. I believe that we have to use our voices, and we have to be seen, we have to be heard, and we have to be held. Some of us don't even get touched, or it feels safe to hold someone's hand. I mean, where did that go so wrong? You know?
Yeah.
When we're little children, we go to school and we have this programming, and I believe that we're more connected to nature than we realise, so we have this cyclical living. There's actually 13 months in a year, not 12, so we're tipped out of balance from the very beginning. We're told we must sit down. Some of us are not meant to sit down in the class, some of us are meant to move around. We're not able to be told what to do. We're meant to be free and creative spirits. Every one of us in this room look differently. How beautiful is that? And we're being conditioned to try and look the same. And I need to look like this person. Why have I not got this? And we're looking outside to try and fit in. We've always belonged. We've always belonged, every single one of us. We need to feel safe. One of the best things I've ever done in my own healing was to sit in a circle of people on the ground and just share, and no one interrupts. Me and my dad interrupt each other. We're still learning. But you have this talking stick or microphone now, and you speak your truth from your heart, and you let that energy move through. What energy? We have a story. It's coming from our generations, and we're ashamed. We're carrying generational pain. We came here now to clear this energy. We've been living from our heads, in front of TVs, being brainwashed, giving chemicals that keep us sick, living in rooms and houses that keep us separated. We're meant to be a tribe. Look at us here today, all together in this room. We have to re-tribalize and remember our own individual, unique beauty. Every single one of us here are warriors, man of the heart. Every single one of us. We've been to hell and back. We're survivors. The people that have had the privileges, you haven't got any idea what we've been through. And you know what we've all got? Heart. The biggest hearts. Scotland is a place that I went through, is where my family are from. This is my first time coming here since a little girl, and me and my dad are reconnecting now. He's just turning 70. It's never too late to change our story. So we share our stories, as shitty as they are, in any way we can, and we write a new story together. Thank you.
Definitely, I couldn't even elaborate on that. You said it so perfectly, man. It's like we weren't designed to fit in, we were designed to stand out, and I think we forget that somewhere in our life. But as you've just demonstrated yourself, it's never too late to make a change. It only just starts with the first step. You don't even need to know the path that's in front of you. Figure out the first step and then just take each one after it, and before you know it, you've got momentum, man. But thank you for that, man. It was beautiful. Thank you, Josh.
I know, I think it's, you got a question, John?
2 seconds. What was I going to say? I'm the eternal optimist, and I can see things, and I see them all the time. And when we go on social media, there's a hell of a lot of positive things happening down Fergusley Park. As Terry's involved in the most there. You know what I mean? I can look at St Mirren thriving. I can look at Johnston Borough thriving. I can look at Renfrew Juniors thriving. I can look in the centre of Paisley, discover Paisley, Paisley Tours. I can see people promoting, being positive. Now, I remember all the Tamazipan wars, and the Queen was down here with Panorama, cutting the tape to open this place 30 odd years ago, when drugs was really prevalent. And being a drug dealer, you were Bertie Big Balls, and everybody wanted to be connected to you. You'd back up for Castlemilk to Columbia. See, 30 years later, now, a lot of the people on that programme are all dead now, right? But see, 30 years later, drug dealing and what have you, people they're hiding under their bed and they can't distance themselves that much from it. The positive things that I see happening, see the 7 and 8 year olds that are coming up the now, and their parents. If you're on social media, they're either taking them to the football, they're going to watch their kids playing football. It's boxing, it's dancing, it's music, it's singing, it's all this. And the community is starting to police the community, and they're knitting together slowly but surely. Now see the 7 and 8 year olds that are coming up the now, see in 10 years time, they'll not be dealing kilos and schmelos, and people will not be looking at drug dealers at Bertie Big Balls or air bombs. I mean, they'll just be getting discounted, because I see things happening, I see it changing. In Fergusley Park, there is a hell of a lot of positive things happening in Fergusley and Paisley in general, and it's slowly but surely knitting together. And it's politics. You said there was 18 times through poverty more liable to get involved in drug addiction. We'll see how the Scottish elections go next year, but eventually, I put posters out years ago saying the government were manufacturing drug addicts through poverty. Know what I mean? Because of that statistic. Know what I mean? So I see things changing. I see Terry. I see a lot of people doing a lot of hard work. We've all been involved. We all know who deals, who doesn't deal, who's connected, who's not connected. But I see a lot of positive change. I'm just the eternal optimist. And even the way Terry moved to get this done here, that was a very, very, very positive thing. And it was a really great film that Jordan and Sean put together, and Terry got it down here the night. The ones that stayed, well, maybe people had to leave, but I was looking at the positives. I think it's like Benjamin Disraeli, a Prime Minister, a Tory Prime Minister from way back in the day, said, keep your eye on Paisley. As if these fuckers are revolutionaries. They've always been going back to William Wallace. Right, cheers.
I'm a bit scared that I've got a mic in my hand. Myself and Lauren, my name's Olivia, we are both harm reduction practitioners and trauma-informed practitioners. I mean, congratulations on the film. There's a lot of things probably as us would probably sit in the fence about, especially maybe a couple of the people that were on the film, just from experience from people that we support, that there's a lot of exploitation happening with the guy, especially from the streets, interviewing people who are, you know, clearly very under the influence, and I think there's a lot of shutdown on harm reduction, but, you know, as practitioners, we are proof that, you know, it does work. I was 19 when I started working in homelessness and working with women with addictions, and it was zero tolerance services, so women weren't allowed to bring drugs into services, and they brought the harm reduction policy in, and I'll be the first to say I was like, there's absolutely no way I can work here because the deaths and the overdoses were so bad, and it literally changed in a matter of weeks. People weren't overdosing, people were being more open about their drug use, they were being more open in what was going on in their lives. And I think as much as like my lived experience, I've got family who are in addiction, that, you know, there is a disease part of it, but it's a lot to do with the environment they're in. We live in Glasgow, which is, it's a very, you know, it's a very poor area, and there is affluent areas, but we're now living in a cost of living crisis. We're coming out of COVID, and if you're not pumping money into these communities and, you know, building it up like we've done in uni, we're still going to have the same problems. We've got a housing crisis just now, you know, and this is something we say to our women when they present to us, like, we can't sit here and judge you because the choices that you're making, who might say that I wouldn't have done it. If I don't have a house and, you know, my life has fell apart, who might sit here and say I wouldn't make that same choice, because it's fight or flight out there in these streets, especially in the city centre where we're based. It's absolute flight or fight. And a few of my women that I support were sat on the steering group for the consumption. I know a lot of people have very, very mixed reviews on that. But, you know, there's people who, if they didn't attend, they would have died because of the nitrogens that are going about. People are literally, as a harm reduction approach, we ask people, it's better to smoke it than injecting it, and there's people dropping dead. But the problem is we can't catch up with the new trend of drugs. Scottish Government are not quick enough. A lot of the statutory services aren't quick enough to, you know, keep up to date with this. We don't have the reinforcements to, you know, tackle it. Hunter Street is just touching the surface, but they would have never got as much funding as they did, that they needed to be. Canada and other countries, it's been such a success, the drug consumption rooms. It's like lowered deaths, it's, you know, people are getting into housing, people are getting support. I think for me, watching it, I understand your point of view, because everybody, you know, we talk about AA, they're so successful, and like you said, it's not one size fits all. But I think there has to be more insight that, you know, harm reduction is working and it is saving people's lives until they're ready to be abstinent. I think one thing, like I would probably just say, because I know you're wanting to say some stuff as well, that the drug consumption room is not enabling addiction. It's giving them somewhere safe, that they're not injecting in a doorway, they're not injecting in a car park, they're not sharing needles. You know, the organisation that we work for is all about harm reduction, you know, using safely, discarding your tools safely, speaking to people, accessing support, and people come back and people aren't overdosing because they're watching how they're using their drugs and using alcohol. But I understand how you have done. I mean, it's a fantastic piece of work and it's coming from some sides of yous, but maybe looking into more, there's other things out there that are helping people. But congrats on, you know.
Oh, I'd just like to say thanks, like, and I think I think harm reduction this is only my opinion, right? I think harm reduction gets plenty of good kind of coverage, do you know what I mean? The mainstream media cover a lot of harm reduction, do you know what I mean? And I think they cover it in a positive manner. I think harm reduction's got a huge place in Scotland. I don't doubt that for a minute, but I think when you get a £25 million emergency bill and you put 24.5 million into harm reduction and put £500,000 into rehab, I think there is an imbalance, do you know what I mean? That's, I think, what we were trying to say. I mean, harm reduction's certainly got a place. I mean, you guys do an amazing job and you're on the front line, do you know what I mean? There's no way you can take that away from you. But I think the government, I don't know, some of the people I know, like, it's all right having, I don't understand, see what you're talking about Canada, Norway and stuff like that. They've got literally across the street, they've got rehabs. So
there needs to be a balance, but I think from what I've took from what you have presented, there wasn't enough harm reduction in it. But I get your argument that completely, it's the same argument we have in our work every day, that, you know, women need to be in these rehab facilities, they need the help because they're ready to go. But it comes to when they go into the crisis centre and they're in there for 2 weeks, then they're sometimes put back out in the community with nowhere to stay, you know, no immediate support, and they're having to wait for funding to go into a permanent rehab facility. It all comes down to money. At the end of the day, that's what the statutory service says. It all comes down to money. But there is a complete imbalance. But I think, because what the sides you're showing, it would, like, for me, it would be nice to see the two sides of it, because I'm not saying harm reduction is the complete answer to it, because abstinence, you want people to be well and be in abstinence, but while, you know, if that's happening, if harm reduction, the way it's working is people are cutting down their drug use or they're cutting down their alcohol use, that's still, you know, a part of recovery. That's somebody using, you know, a 20 bag of smack going down to 10. So that is a harm reduction approach, and then cutting down and doing it safely. But I understand, you know, sometimes through like NNA, there is the abstinent approach that you can't be on medication. We've had, you know, an ongoing problem that people who have mental health issues cannot attend AA or NA because they cannot be using medication. That's a barrier for them when they're wanting to enter recovery, because they can't stay in that group because they are having to use medication for a mental health issue. So there is such things as smart meetings, and there's other things that you can access. But I see, like, it is a success, you know. I think it would be nice to see the both sides of it.
Just before I pass it to Jordan, right? Like, see the example you used, like Canada and for Scandinavian and stuff like that, other countries that have got these places. You go in and you get the option to go into rehab for there. Do you know what I mean? Hunter Street don't offer that. Hunter Street offers you a safe place to consume drugs, and I think that there's a place there. But I think they should be offering places, if you're ready to go into use safely, then you should be offered a chance to maybe go on and.
But that's not the consumption room's fault. That's not available to them because the funding's just not there. So they're trying to make. They're trying to kind of sort what's happening. But we've done the tour of the consumption room because we've worked very closely with them. We're not far from the site. They've got workers in there trying to get the guys housing, trying to get them into services, linking them in with people. But their HS are also up against that there is absolutely no funding in their beds. Yeah. So they're trying to go, right, if I can't ask them, can I get them into rehab, what else can I try and fix today? So, okay, why don't you go down here and get a set of clothes and something to eat, or I can get you on the accommodations list today. They're also, and that's not to say because it's terrible that people can't get into rehab, because we've got people begging to go in. But they're working with what they've got as well, and I'm not saying it's right, but you're also like, if you can help with that, it's starting the process, because they're also up against trying, because they want to put people into rehab. Nobody wants that, but it's not there either.
No, I think, well, this is only my opinion. I think the mainstream media give like harm reduction and a massive amount of coverage. Do you know what I mean? So I think they get enough coverage with harm reduction, and I don't think anybody would argue that there's no place for harm reduction. I don't think, maybe if we didn't show that, I thought we kind of did say like it was an imbalance. Do you know what I mean? But maybe we could have improved. That's something that we'll take on board, you know what I mean? But I'll let Jordan kind of...
So just I appreciate you giving your perspective. It's always good to hear the other side, because it's not one of these things where we want to go, right, this is the message here and nobody else can disagree with it. I really appreciate your perspective you've put forward. One thing I point out, in terms of what it's believed in like AA, NA as such, that you need to be abstaining from medication, that's a complete misconception. I believe, I don't know if we've heard that personally from anybody in there, but people assume that. I work with addicts and sponsor them, and through CA and AA they teach it through the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, but applies to addiction essentially, and there is a part specifically about listening to people of medicine, of medicinal education essentially, and what I try and break it down to people, there's a difference between being prescribed 2 cocodamol a day for sciatica and you're taking 10 a day. There's a difference between prescribed usage and then when it starts going into problematic usage. But there's people that come into meetings and they think that, and it goes back to that thing as well. Like, a lot of people just look like to me, I'd love to go into recovery, but I don't believe in God. And they're like, it's not a Christian thing, but you need to come in and kind of understand it. There's definitely a room for harm reduction. There's a room for methadone, but as I was pointing out, like with methadone, there's no like a route to abstinence from methadone. And if I'm talking about the addiction, I am the type of addict that needs abstinence, because I can't safely use drugs or alcohol. I can't take a line of cocaine and go home, or a pint, because it leads into chaos, unmanageability and all the rest of it. But the thing is, in terms of, like you're saying, it's giving addicts a safer place to inject, and I of course have got access to the clean needles, which the harm reduction was already kind of in effect, because you had I don't know the name of the space in roughly Tradeston area where there was like the needle exchange. But also the thing is as well, they say it's cleaned up the streets, but it's not so much for the people of the Carlton who've actually been like, holding like kind of community gatherings like this, because round about the consumption rooms there's like almost the police aren't arresting people for possession of drugs, which is leading to people selling drugs round about there, and the local area is plummeted, and a lot of the residents are getting quite angry and frustrated with it, and they're feeling unsafe in their own area. And of course these problems can arise after the back of any kind of intervention trying stage, but when you try and voice this out to like councillors and politicians, they're not calling them liars, but they're making it as if they're making it a problem out of nothing, and they need to actually have gatherings like this to have that discussion. And as Sean says, I felt as if, could we have given a more balanced view of the harm reduction side? Probably aye. And Anne-Marie said that there is a room for harm reduction services, but there's a severe imbalance, like Sean just mentioned there. Personally, I think harm reduction in the mainstream media does get quite a positive review, but we're not saying discontinue it, we're just saying let's balance it out, and we might see a lot of people that use these services be guided out towards them. And of course there's some people that might go like, you know what, I don't want to go into rehab, I want to take my crack or my smack or whatever, and fair play to them, and if we can give them a space where they can use it safely, then brilliant. But of course I think from your perspective there has to be a bit more of a balanced approach in order to get the most effect out of it.
So just to comment on like the Carlton area that you said, that was a big reason why they chose to put it in Hunter Street, where it was an already existing facility, so it wouldn't all of a sudden bring, let's say, quote unquote, a certain type of people to that area. And statistically there hasn't been any more police involvement in the last year or so since they've opened, and we're well aware of the community groups that have been set up in the area. But I just wanted to ask, I was surprised to see such a focus on the guy who films the streets in the film, as he is known to us as someone who very much exploits the women that we work with, as in filming them when they're under the influence, as was exhibited in your film, when they can't consent. They do sometimes face a lot of stigma when them at their worst gets plastered all over social media. This has led to issues with their accommodation services and the police itself. And to that point, like, the aftercare was mentioned in the film. What was the aftercare and compensation like for the people that you focused on in the film?
What point do you mean with aftercare?
If you're filming somebody who
is sharing their lived experience,
also using substances on screen, there's an aftercare thing, like, did you offer support? Like, because the guy from the streets, that's not something he does to the people that you support.
Davey was actually grew up in my area, and he was more than happy to kind of because of the abuse that he hinged in Kerlaw, he was more than happy to tell his story. So we did offer Davy a chance to come to services, and I still that offer's always open to Davy, but Davy's quite happy taking his drugs at the moment. Do you know what I mean? So at this moment in time, I don't know. There wasn't any aftercare for Davy because he didn't want it. But bar that, I can't say anything about Francis. I don't know. We're only going with a social media platform that's putting out a good thingy. But I don't know. You know more than me, and I think it's actually quite unprofessional talking about somebody in the middle of the middle of a room like that. Just like bring up. I just think it was quite unprofessional, like talking about him in that open way. Like I don't know how he would react to that. That's fine.
He's not here to defend himself.
See, in reality, what you'll find is people, government, social work, have always got something negative to say, but they know better than the people that's had the lived experience. Whatever they've got in their wee bit of paper that tells them they're fucking intelligent. See, right now, the Renfrew Council's freaking out about Scotland flags going up in their pole, as if we're losing control. You can stick fucking Ukraine all over your Facebook and do what you want, because we're telling you there, you better get fucking Scotland flags down. Any day with government and social work out there to do.
You know what, it's a fair point. Honestly, I don't know Francis, and I can't say anything.
Not necessarily about him, I was just commenting on that, but the question was, sorry, can I finish?
He does a lot of good work.
We don't want this to turn into anything.
I don't want this either. I was asking a question about... I was asking a question just about, like, as Dan McGarvey's talked about in his book about aftercare when people are sharing their lived experience in your film. I'm interested because we do a lot all that work. I was interested in finding out.
I thought you said that he was exploiting women, and I thought I heard you saying that. I might have picked up wrong.
I did say that. That was a comment. But my question was to that point of like people who are in the film. How are you supporting them?
Francis, I don't know.
See, as far as I know with Francis, like it doesn't go out with any like official documents and contracts as such. What I know is he establishes a relationship with these people in the streets, and like I can understand it. It's like people, like we should ask these people to try and sober up as such, or not be under the influence of drugs to be on camera. But at the same time as well, it's like, does that go back to at what point do we find these people that aren't under the influence of some drugs? Because you look at Billy that was on the street, he's on dihydrocodeine, methadone, he's crack cocaine, whatever else on top of that. At which stage are we able to get him like totally free from substance? Probably never. But the thing is, should his story not be told? And I understand there are people that go out there that they exploit people for views, whatever. I know Francis personally, I knew him before the streets, and I don't think that's his intention, because I've seen the way he is with these people off camera, and usually you can gauge it like that. You can maybe see some people, as soon as the camera's on them, it's like these people that go about, like, help the homeless, and they're handing them a bunch of sleeping bags, and then they're going away, clearly doing it for views. I've seen him off camera, and I've seen him what he's like with people, and for instance, when I was following him about the Shane I had the camera. It was down to me when I was recording as such. The guy Jerry didn't want to be on camera. I respected that, but that was me catching what you would say a fly in the wall moment where he didn't know he was getting recorded. Well, Francis didn't anyway, and that was just showing you kind of what a genuine guy he is as such. I can understand people have got different perspectives, and you're totally entitled to that, but if we felt that we were exploiting anybody or we were allowing an arena for people to get exploited, that totally wasn't anything.
I was just asking as well, like, was there aftercare and all that involved with you doing the film? Like,
because you shared your lived experience as well.
Yeah, like talking about Billy, was there aftercare? Like, did you still link in with him and stuff like that? I think it's something that spoke about a lot on media, because obviously the work that we're doing, we're trying to raise awareness for, right? So we're having to ask people, you know, what is it like? But is organisations letting people down because we're not offering that aftercare? Going, like, come and speak to someone, let's like get into services. Was that offered throughout the film? Like, that's what we're wanting to ask.
It was offered to Davy, and as Sean says, because Davy, he was heavily featured in it, not just for the fact that he was openly using drugs in camera, which he consented to, but also sharing his story, which is obviously a very personalised account. And we did have that conversation with people, and we've offered with support as such. Tracy, she's already involved with bereaved families, like certain charities as such. She does that in that work, so she's actively involved in aftercare. With Davy, like, the saying goes, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink it. So it's like the offer has been there, but he's quite content in the position he's in. I wish that could be the impetus for him to go and steer him into recovery. I really wish that was the case, but as we spoke about throughout the duration of this, people need to want it. And
if it's not a breaking point, then it's not a breaking point. They're not ready. Do you know what I mean?
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. It's a breaking point, and some people might go look at that and maybe think, to me, it looks as if he's been past his breaking point a few times, but that's not for me to say to him, you're at a breaking point, you're at rock bottom, you need to go and do this. It's like, I can only extend the hand, but he has to take it, and if he's content in the position he's in, that's unfortunate. All I need to do is respect that. We need to do is respect that, and if he ever wants to seek out the support and the guidance into recovery as such, then I'd be more than happy to offer it to him.
And we talk about, obviously, in recovery, about a window opportunity, and if you were with the boys and a window opportunity arose, there's no doubt that you would have grabbed it and brought them to a meeting and try and got them help. Do you know what I mean? And knowing that he's in recovery, I know you would have done that. Do you know what I mean? If that window opportunity was there. I just wanted to ask you both one question. If people saw you at your worst, what would you want them to know about the person underneath it all? That's for the both of you.
So if people saw us at our worst, what would they want to know?
Aye, in addiction. Like underneath it all, like you said about the guy of our own that fell on the street and people just walking by. Like, what would you want people to know underneath all of that? Do you know what I mean?
Have you got an answer? I can think. I'll need to think about that one, but I'll give you an answer.
I think you just need to kind of think of that child that's probably suffered some serious kind of, I don't know, some serious trauma usually. Do you know what I mean? That's usually the underpinning, as James Dockett was talking about, it's like an underpinning factor. When you look at somebody, there's always a story behind that person, do you know what I mean? And I think, like, as I say, it's like there's the services out there that are very limited, harm reduction and kind of like community services, they're both really, really limited in what we can do. We can only do our best, you know what I mean? And there's people like us, like the harm reduction teams are doing their best, and the community service, when there's no money getting pumped into it, there's not really much you can do. But I think if you're looking at a person, think of the people in your life that you know, that you would like to get help, or the people that you knew of. Do you know what I mean? Like, I lost my best pal. I wish I could have helped him. I wish I knew more, but I didn't. Do you know what I mean? For whatever reason, they didn't want to tell me. So it's hard. But when you look at anybody, there's always a story there. Do you know what I mean? And it's usually a tragic story. And everybody that works in that field will be able to tell you that. Do you know what I mean?
Okay. So, one thing my answer to that would be, and it's one thing we've really tried to achieve with this, and this is the lens through which I look at any type of addiction. It's not just like the person on the street or the alcoholic or the cocaine addict or the person that's smoking crack day in, day out. It's people it's like they're pursuing it in relationships, sexual conduct as such, those, because addiction isn't just limited to a substance. But what I say is to myself, what do they try to escape from? That's the question. And I always ask, and some people, when I have conversations, I kind of get, it's not a glow inside me as such, but when I speak to friends that have maybe, they've started to look at things through that lens, like they've seen people like, what's this person trying to escape from? Because suddenly you're like, you're willing to be educated in a sense, and I see that in every addiction I look at. It doesn't matter how well it looks on the outside, because some people are like functioning, we hear functioning alcoholic, high successful business person, multi-million-pound business, big course, drinks every night of the week. What do they try to escape from? That's the question I always ask, and if we ask those questions, then I'd say we'd be surprised to hear the answer. I don't think we'd be surprised, because it's never usually coming from a good place. So that's probably I'd say, is asking what do they try to escape from.
I was just like to say, I get dead nervous when it's dead loud. Say about you saying about humanising addiction. Like, there's a thing the other day and it was on social media. Like, social media is a big thing, especially, and it's showing how it's a choice, right? Like, I'm a recovering addict myself, right? And it's not a choice. I didn't ever choose to put that phone away, and I didn't ever choose. I'm still somebody's daughter, I'm still somebody's sister, and especially I'm somebody's mum, do you know what I mean? And it was actually a guy passed away in Glasgow, and it was talking about the drug deaths, and it was anyway said about the sympathy. All the comments underneath were horrible. It was about like how that it's a choice, that they've chose to take drugs, they've chose to that, nobody chooses to, and it's in that video it's like, you don't choose to be an addict, do you know what I mean? Like, I started taking drugs when I was 13-year-old. I didn't even have a choice, I was a child. Do you know what I mean? I didn't know what a choice was. at that age, and it's just about, I think it's a really good thing what you've done. And just for the lassies that were talking about harm reduction, I was actually watching a documentary about it the other day as well, and it's over 80% of the money is spent on harm reduction, right? So if you're like for me as an addict, if somebody tells me I can take one or something, I don't just take one, so I can't do harm reduction. I've tried that. That's my personal experience and just my personal opinion, and it's the same goes for my ex-partner. And he had a drugs worker, and it was about harm reduction. He overdosed, he's still here, but he was in a coma and stuff like that. And whereas sometimes I don't think the areas of like fellowships or cocaine, like anonymous things are, like people don't know enough about recovery because it's the wrong people that's informing them as well. It's like the government does not have a clue, do you know what I mean? And like a lot of doctors don't know. Like I've got a psychiatrist and she's trying to give me I've got ADHD, so see that you can be medicated in the rooms as well, like in recovery. I'm medicated for my ADHD, do you know what I mean? And it's all done through a doctor, so but it's then they just try and put you, or like they don't understand, like doctors, psychiatrists, they don't understand about proper recovery either, so it's the wrong people that's informing other people. So they're telling me, just take another tablet, and for me to say no. Do you know what I mean? And like the government, if they've not lived in addiction, how can they know where the money should go, or how can they know I don't know if that's making sense what I'm saying, but how can people who don't understand then be in charge of the money to go see where it goes when they don't even understand it in the first place? Do you know what I mean? So I think it's good to highlight that, because if you're not ever affected by addiction, how do you know what's got to help addiction? Do you know what I mean? So.
Yeah, definitely. I made a really good point there, and of course when people talk about, because you go into, you post any video, no, definitely.
You could video a good Samaritan doing a beautiful deed, and you'd have people oscillating in the comment section, because that's just unfortunately social media. But a lot of people hold that opinion, and I've seen it in some of my videos saying, oh, it's a choice. And it's debatable. Taking drugs is a choice. Becoming addicted, isn't it? I never took a first drugs like that. I'm going to burn my life to the ground, go do multiple prison sentences, ostracise myself and my family after taking this, and I'm going to have a good night. And then it's no till after the fact. Even when I was addicted, I didn't think I was addicted. Not taught of it. So, and as James says earlier, we're usually the last people to know, the last people to realise when everybody else is, I'm a drug addict, by the way. Like, I fucking knew that about 2 years ago. Not taught of it. But in terms of it as well, there are very educated people that are uneducated in this sense, and there's a big divide as we're talking about the harm reduction stuff, of course, and a lot of people have thought, well, harm reduction has got a place as such, but people believe it's too heavily funded, and it becomes a divide because as people, especially in modern day society, we become very divided on the smallest of issues, and this is a very big issue. And you look at the likes of somebody that goes into a GP surgery. I'm not saying every GP you go into with cocaine addiction will prescribe you methadone, but there are people in there which is fucking dangerous. Know what I mean? Because in my opinion, cocaine's fucking terrible. I've never been on methadone, but if I had the choice, I would take cocaine, right? And that's not me advocating for it, and that's not me judging anybody that's on methadone. Listen, as I say, that has got its place if used correctly, but there is a lack of education in this sense, and it's like, I believe the education is out there, and I heard somebody whose opinion I hold in high regard says to me that they said they know more plumbers that have saved lives. They know plumbers that have saved more lives than drug workers have. Know what I mean? And that's in the rooms of recovery, because for some people, the harm reduction approach, as you said, that's not an answer. I can't safely use drugs. Know what I mean? Because it may benefit the general public in the streets, which of course there shouldn't be dirty needles lying in the street. There shouldn't be people lying ODing in closes as such. But giving them a safe space as such might not be the answer. Maybe for some people that don't want to be steered into recovery, but it kind of sends out the wrong message, as if, right, to me, it looks more like a road to decrim, as if, right, we'll accept this type of thing. And of course, there's a lot of debate around the effectiveness of that, but definitely needs to be a lot more education, and I don't think it's coming for the universities, it's not coming for the government. I think it's coming for places like this, the community. Because it needs to start from the ground up, because the community is the people that are suffering. The community's lived experience. Everybody in here, there might not be drug addicts in here or alcoholic addicts, but you've witnessed it. You've witnessed addiction. Maybe your next door neighbour, your family. You've witnessed it in the streets. You walk out into the schemes, into the tunes, and you see it firsthand. A lot of people haven't been exposed to that. You know what I mean? And most of the people that haven't been exposed to that firsthand are the people that are making the laws, that are in charge. So there definitely needs to be a lot more education, and I think these types of conversations are the conversations that need to be had.
No, I agree. I think it's like, as I say, I'm no knocking harm reduction because I think there's a massive place for it. Do you know what I mean? I just think there needs to be a kind of a middle balance. Do you know what I mean? There needs to be a balance, and as Jordan says, I know plenty of guys that can go out at the weekend and take a couple of lines of coke and then go to work all week. Do you know what I mean? I know loads of guys that can do that. Do you know what I mean? But no, a lot of drug addicts, especially people hiding trauma and hiding the stuff we're talking about, usually can't. Do you know what I mean? So if you're going to say to them, it's all right, listen, I was in jail with people that are on 280 ml of methadone. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's dangerous. Do you know what I mean? It's dangerous when you have got that person using on top of that. And I think what the harm reduction team will probably agree with me, I would think, is it's fentanyl and the nitazines are very dangerous, do you know what I mean? And I think that's where you guys would probably come in a lot more harm reduction, because we're going to need it. We are going to need it. It's coming. I know, and it's going to hit like a hurricane, do you know what I mean? So there is a huge place for harm reduction, and I apologise if I was kind of hanging like a wee bit earlier. That I didn't mean that. Do you know what I mean? I thought that you were kind of making allegations about somebody that's all that. But no, please don't think that. There's a massive place for harm reduction, and I don't. The only reason we didn't balance it, I think we kind of thought about it in.
I mean,
Oh right, definitely. We probably chose no to write just because we wanted it to be hard hitting, right, and we wanted it to be that kind of. So we wanted people to kind of go away and go, I'll never call him a junkie again. We didn't want, do you know what I mean? And I think we kind of spoke about it, and we said, look, mainstream media cover a lot of harm reduction, and my mum and dad will go, oh well, there's plenty of help out there, like we watched it there, and do you know what I mean? So the moderate person will just think that there's plenty of help out there, do you know what I mean? But it's mostly harm reduction that's on the television. I just think it should be more balanced, the same as you guys, do you know what I mean? So it's.
We could all agree you can't take somebody to the recovery if they're not here.
Yeah.
So that's, it's a bridge to get into a better place where you can access recovery, but it should be more accessible.
Yeah, not all or nothing.
Yep.
It's still one, as we say, it's like there's so many different aspects that come into it, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, just if I would wee small point, I think, because we're all kind of in agreement here, because at the end of the day, there's nobody in here that wants to see anybody at a disadvantage. We want to have the best possible solution that is going to give somebody the best quality of life. So we're all, what avenue we take to get there. Personally, I think harm reduction should act as the bridge, and abstinence, like rehabs as such, that should be the kind of end of the road solution. That's my personal opinion. Of course, I think if we kind of work towards that, we might see better results. But of course, there is a place for harm reduction as such. But we're all in agreement, essentially, like a lot more needs to be done, and education is key in this sense.
Thanks very much, folks. I think the nature of the question and the different perspectives that we've heard this evening, for me, underlines the absolute importance of things like this, coming together to exchange the perspectives, to gain a proper understanding of that other perspective that we've maybe never heard before, because we have been that wrapped up in our own recovery or our own addiction journey. So I'd really just like to finish off by thanking everybody for coming along this evening, taking part, more importantly, because these things can, sometimes a Q&A can fall flat on its backside. I'm really glad that this one didn't. And I look forward to us continuing this conversation in whichever form that might take. I think some of the points that you've made tonight have certainly got me thinking things of my own kind of prejudicial nature and how I view these things and stuff as well. I think it's also important just to recognise the wee collection that was done for the fantastic group that operates in the Tannahill Centre, the community drop-in, Ferguson Community Church, Wednesday drop-in. They're fantastic at meeting people where they're at. No coercing people doing avenues, or because they've not got a skin in the game. Their only skin in the game is they care for the person that's experiencing that. So for me, that's the fundamental part. Similarly, your film highlighted one particular issue, which is the kind of backbone of what I stand for, frankly, where you mentioned class. And we've all got our own opinions, whether it be MPs taking gear off the toilets in Westminster, but that's all right, that's fine, we could just draw a line under that and move on. But you're a junkie if you're doing the scheme. So there's that thing, but also, even Ash Regan made comment, and I suppose it kind of builds on Fergus Park's own rich experience. Stigma, that's what we're talking about here in effect. If there's a community that understands the power of stigma and the disadvantage of stigma, believe me, it's Fergus Park. Ash Regan hits the nail right in the head, and I don't like her, frankly, but she hits the nail right in the head, in my mind, when she says, this has become an industry. In the same way that the poverty industry has its grip on Fergusley, on, I don't know, Easterhouse, Drumchapel, all the ones that immediately fill it. Is it possible that the drugs industry has literally got its grip on our communities in the same way? We just don't acknowledge it or recognise it in the same way. Because I see practitioners, frankly, who are middle class in origin, they're well intentioned, they get up out of their bed every morning thinking, I'm going out there to make a difference, and 9 times out of 10 they make it worse. But it's a well intentioned kind of, I feel like, recipe for disaster. But I'll shut up now because this isn't about me and it's no my soapbox. I've thoroughly enjoyed the night, I hope you have too. Can we just finish up, guys, with a huge round of applause here for Jordan and Sean.
We also appreciate how in Ferguson the Friday night is like a religious ceremony for everybody to the team, so we really appreciate you coming over in your droves and sharing so many different insights and speaking up, because if it wasn't for yourselves we wouldn't have had a Q&A, so thank you.
Thank you very much. Cheers. No, I'd just like to thank everybody as well. Cheers, thanks.